school, we will start today with public comments.
See no public here electronically.
In here, so we'll move on to finance. The treasurer's report for August of 2023 is in the board packet. Can I have a motion to approve the report?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is the Dundas Family Equity and Inclusion Initiative. Gonna give a gift.
I just need you to accept it.
Need your,
It's like as with any grant or scholarship money, the board has to accept to receive that. Do you have the write-up of it in your package?
yeah, do you want me to, do you want to tell us about it, or do you want me to, I can just read, I can for the benefit of the.
Read number one of it?
Yeah, okay. A scholarship is created in which $500 shall be awarded annually to graduating student of color, BIPOC, who will pursue higher education to include university, colleges, trade schools, and apprenticeships. Potential recipients must apply for the scholarship using the appropriate form obtained from the counseling office. The deadline for the submission shall be April 15th of each school year. Applications shall be reviewed by a committee established by the administration to include the associate principals of student life and the SVSU equity coordinator. The recipient shall provide proof of enrollment and balance due to the institution or organization, and payment will be made directly to that institution on his or her behalf. If in any year there is no qualified students, the scholarship shall not be awarded.
I believe the total donation was $20,000. Family that should be recognized, and then we can fund multiple scholarships in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would this be an appropriate time to ask that a letter be sent to thank for
I
the,
think it would be appropriate to ask your clerk to do that. Who
Scott? Would you be willing to do that?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
That'd be volunteer yourself.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept this?
So moved.
Second. Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
do.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Am I reading this that it's a scholarship and there's a fund for?
Yes.
Okay. So
The
there's
gift does two things.
Okay,
Yes.
$10,000 to the scholarship with the understanding that they would spend it down over a course of years, one award every year until it's done. And the other one is $10,000 to fund, and within the descriptions, examples of things that could be funded. Outside speaker, field trips for specific groups of kids, and those things. And the understanding is that may be spent down more quickly because projects will come up a little more.
very generous.
But in the initiative, it is outlined what activities it conducted.
Yep. It says activities similar to.
We thank the banner for the nice article and picture today.
I text with a picture of you in it, and somebody in the middle who I didn't know and said, "Do you know who the guy in the middle is?" I'm like, "No." You know now.
Under the maple tree that is no longer there.
Oh, last known picture taken there?
That's the
That's the
picture.
picture.
I'm
Man,
standing
the
under
day
that tree,
before,
that's very nice.
standing under that tree. It was
I was-
so hot.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I just want to make sure we're,
I said aye, sorry.
okay, great, no problem, I just want to make sure, sometimes I forget to say so.
Chopping chocolate
All
is over.
opposed, the motion carries.
I just
Okay.
gave you that.
Okay,
You can change.
we're going to move on to the consent agenda. There's nothing on that under operations. We're going to move the consent agenda. We have minutes, warrants, retirements, leave of absence, resignations, and nominations. How would the group like to deal with it? All in one, or would you like to go one by one?
I was told this is where I can ask if we have a boxing unit, because on page 2 of the check register, there's all kinds of expenses for boxing equipment. Do we have boxing?
So we don't have the athletic director here tonight, Dave, but I could, if that answer, I could only speculate that maybe it's part, don't have a boxing team that I'm aware of, but it could have been for a physical education unit. But we can get you that answer.
Okay.
Curious myself.
Was it acceptable that we do a motion on, can I have a motion to approve? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We will move on to policies. We have policy 5080. Oh, geez, I'm sorry, Jim, I skipped, or Jason, skip right over this. I mean, wait a second.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Tori Ward is now coming to the meeting.
Okay.
So the first part of my presentation, and this is happening at all our board meetings this month of September, it's time that we bring to you the Recovery Pillar 3, which is academic achievement, which is going to be presented by your principals and the SVSU Director of Curriculum Instruction Assessment, Melissa Seneca. So,
Everybody, it's really good to see you all. I have a color handout for you and I'll also be sharing the screen. I normally have a friend that drives for me. So I will tell you, I apologize as I'm in there. Bigger. The two of them.
yes.
You're welcome. So much. These are all numbered and you can see there's 8 pages of them. So I have a little key on the front that tells you what each page is at the top. Pages 1 and 2 is an overview are the definitions of what we're going to be talking about in the state assessment update. The definitions, because sometimes, as Mr. Coquille respectfully tells me, I speak way too much, and so I'm trying to be respectful of that piece. And then an state assessment update, because I think it's good for all of you to know that we're constantly monitoring those and the latest news, and you are going to be hearing about the latest news. Pages 3 and 4 are going to be the growth scores from MAU 6 and up for math and reading. And then we also do a balance of growth and achievement. And so we have our normed achievement scores for pages 5 and 6. And and then continuing into page 6 is our continuous improvement plan. And then I turn it over to our 2 principals to say what their specific goals are and what their action steps are. So, as I said, page 1 is all about the tools that we use. And the tools that we use are MAPS or NWEA. We use those in grades 3 through 10. So we have those for you for the MAU schools for 3 through 10. Well, not 3 through 10, but 6 through 10. And then we have growth and what that means. And those growth percentiles are normed, nationally normed with thousands and thousands of other students that they're being compared to. The percentile is a norm-based information to know where they fall among their peers across the United States that take these. The median percentile that you're going to see in a moment is for that group where they fell, and I'll talk more about that when we get closer to where that is. And moving on to your state testing updates. This is from August, although I will tell you there was an email last Friday, which coincides to remind us nothing has been updated. So even though this says update from August, I can tell you from, again, an email last Friday, it is the same at this time. And so what is the update? The update is that the individual student reports are going to be shared this fall. More details to come, because as of last Friday, they did not want us to print those. So I'm constantly checking to make sure that we can get those out to families as quickly as we are cleared to do so, and that we can lift that information of printing them and getting them to families. Along with, I have an interpretation guide, a 1-page interpretation guide from the state to explain what it means to families. And so you probably are wondering, because your role would be, so how are we doing compared to the rest of the state? That's gonna be on that state report card. And as of right now, the state report card results, they are telling us, should be up and ready in December of 2023, this year. That's what they're saying at this time. The second page, this is directly from our website, where you, if you're wondering, okay, I haven't heard from Melissa during December, I'm wondering if it's there. On our website, under, see if I get this right, sbsu.org, About Us, Reports, you'll find this. And this leads you directly to the state report card annual snapshot, which they're saying is going to be updated this December. So if you want a spoiler alert, I give you a direct link, and I respectfully submit. It can be difficult to find on the AOE site, and so if you can't find it on our site, you can always email me. I will give you that direct link, but it is on our site too. Now to get to how our schools are doing, our MAU schools that is, and again, these are only our MAU schools. So we start with growth, and this is from fall of last year to spring of this past school year. And this is through MAP or NWEA. And you'll notice at the top for color coding, I think it's important to note, MAP is telling us that if it is in red or orange, then that denotes some flat growth. Typical growth for students is denoted in yellow, and we're always striving for aggressive growth, which would be in green or blue. The median percentile on the side shows you where most of the students fell and coincides with that flat, typical, or aggressive. And so the first one that you'll see that I listed is reading. And remember that 48th percentile that you see for sixth grade is about the amount of kids that were typical growth out of that entire group. Most of them fell into that area. So that's what that denotes for that sixth grade reading. And then we've got seventh grade reading, eighth grade, and ninth grade. For math growth, again, the 41% percentile that you see denoted underneath the word growth for sixth grade denotes that that would be typical growth as compared to the rest of their peers across the nation that took the test. And then for math growth, you'll see seventh, eighth, and ninth grade. And wait, just hold for a second. I promise to come back.
I'm just not sure if I'm reading it.
Yeah, absolutely. I promise to come back. Achievement scores, again, nationally normed, reading achievement. This is how they're doing compared to their peers at that grade level. And you can see we've got from the 29th all the way up to the 56th percentile for how kids are doing in reading achievement for this past school year, of course. And then for math and achievement. I'm gonna hold. What I had been telling people is if you had any questions that were specific, that you could give them to the board chair, who could give them to Mr. Coquine. I don't know, Mr. Coquine, if you want to jump into that piece, because I want to be respectful and equitable as I did the other board presentations. Yeah. So what we had done in the other board presentations is you had the questions go to the board chair that went to Jim and Superintendent Coquine. And then we would get the answers for you, trying to be formal and respectful of everybody. But I'm also available for conversations.
Yeah, that's,
That's fine.
we don't mean it as a roadblock.
No, I don't at all.
Kind of feels like that.
Well, I'm
Okay.
so
Yeah,
do I just ask Stephanie to then ask Jim to then just ask you in this meeting? Or you're?
Can we jump over? Can you just ask the question?
I
don't wanna feel-
I'm just having a hard time reading the chart.
Can I just,
We have a small enough group here tonight that I don't
It's
think.
okay.
Yeah.
is there, like, I know if you hit are you concerned if we hit a point where you, like, obviously don't know the answer or need to get back to us, like, that feels like an appropriate.
That's an appropriate response.
Right, yes, okay, I mean, I think that is an appropriate response.
Thank
Okay.
I'm just having a hard time reading the chart. I just want to make sure I'm reading it.
Which page would you like to look at?
I just don't, is it, so like, just starting in from the beginning, because if I can understand the first one, I guess I'll understand the rest of them. So our students are landing in sixth grade on average the 48th percentile? Is that what I'm not sure I'm understanding the chart.
So the median is taking the most of what we have. So most of our students, 48% of them, were able to fall into typical growth.
Okay,
In sixth grade, for reading growth compared to their peers.
peers meaning,
Everybody
Across the
else.
country.
Exactly,
okay.
exactly.
And then with the blue.
Yep.
23% of all the kids across the country were in aggressive growth.
So actually,
Or is that
that's
just
a
our
great
schools?
question. So right here in the blue,
Mhm.
23% of our MAU sixth graders
We're-
were actually showing aggressive growth in reading for sixth grade.
That's exactly, yes, that's exactly what I was trying to
Thank you.
find.
Confused as well. Well, really 33%, right? Because the green and the blue indicate.
Well, right, aggressive, but blue
She
versus,
referenced the blue, I was
yeah,
trying to say
yes.
clearly.
So 33% of our sixth grade students are falling within aggressive growth.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank
And then and then 20% are median growth,
Yes.
and then 47% are below median growth,
Exactly.
or flat growth, not
Flat, yeah.
flat growth, okay. That's all I need to know.
Thank you for that.
You know, there's a lot of colors.
Yeah, there's a lot.
They did new reports, I got really excited.
No, it's very pretty, and it's very aesthetically pleasing, I just wanted to make sure it's reading.
No, we want the information to get out, so I appreciate your question. And as another board said, I might need some time to digest this and ask you questions after. Totally appropriate. Makes perfect sense. You didn't see this ahead of time. Our continuous improvement plan document. Again, this was 2020 to 2023, and we have the extension of this school year. And so these are our goals until the end of this school year. And we have specific, because we're talking about academic tonight, or at least that's my part of it, is the 3 goals. ELA is goal number 1, math is goal number 3, and science is goal number 4. And now I'll turn it over to Kristen Klein.
Can I ask one more question?
Absolutely. You think after this, I'm gonna turn you away from that, right?
I feel like you've answered this question before, and I just want to make sure. Do we ever get to see this compared to a year prior?
We have, in the past, what we kept on doing was waiting for Vermont to give us that annual report card. Because that's gonna have, this is our local assessments,
Yeah.
these are our local assessments.
The math.
Which the maps. And the intention of those is for teachers to drive instruction. Because we have been starving for the Vermont tests to be out, to be able to give them and have them for all of you. We've been using these because it's what we have. It is nationally normed, so I'm comfortable saying that there is correlation between how our students will do here and how they will do on the state tests. We've seen that. But we really want you to see that annual snapshot from the state of Vermont, because you're going to see how our kids are doing in multiple different ways as to how they are measured.
But not necessarily in comparison to the previous year.
We could do that with maps because we have maps results. And so we can put that down as something that we see longitudinally how
Right.
students are doing. And so we could do that with maps. And since they just changed the state assessment, it's gonna take 3 years to build to get to that one. So if we wanted a combination of how they're doing on the state assessment, and then how longitudinally how they're doing on our locals, we could do that.
It would just be interesting to see like if, you know, from the year post-COVID, like if there's a difference between growth that year versus growth this year, or, you know what I mean? Like, just, are those, the things that we're instituting in our schools, recovery efforts, are they,
That is being tracked
Showing
because we
growth.
have that great deal of money under ESSER.
Right.
And so what we have seen, to answer your question, is that we are generally bouncing back very well with reading, and we have work to do with math. And so kudos to both of these principals for not just doing the CAST PL, but a lot of math PL that their assistants that are sparing it up, both Kelsey and Jen, are putting in a lot of math professional learning for those math teachers because yes, across the nation, and we are in that boat, it has been harder to bounce back in mathematics. And it's no one's fault. It's just,
absolutely.
it was during that time, and I can bring in the articles that everybody says, virtually learning for mathematics didn't work for most kids. Reading, they could swim along, and our kids did it too. But virtual learning for math was just, maybe it worked for some kids, but not most. And so we needed,
It worked for me.
we need to have them back in the classroom with their great teachers who are working really hard to get them caught back up.
Absolutely.
So we have to continue watching those math growth scores to see them keep on going up as they're starting to already bounce back, but we have a lot. Mathematics is where we have a lot of the area to grow. If that helps.
Awesome.
Thank you. So the CIP goals, the building level goals for the middle school, this is part of our continuous improvement plan, same, cycle that is in the same, in the same timeframe. So these are goals that were written in 2021, right? And they were 3-year cycle from the state, so that bring you up to 2023. The reason that we're still working with these goals is the state extended that time frame by an extra year, and the goals are now need to be re-examined and rewritten June 2024. Okay, so this is actually year 4 of these goals. These are goals that Mr. Payne and I sat down when I was his assistant a few years back. I have 2 goals at the middle school. One is around academic proficiency, ELA. There's actually 2 goals underneath that academic proficiency ELA goal. All right, one of them specifically talks about historically marginalized and historically privileged students. And so the goal, calls for a specific growth for those subgroups. Okay, so that's the first goal. And then the second goal is, all students, the students will improve reading scores evidenced by a year-over-year student growth increase, 2 to 5%. And, I'm hearing that 2 to 5%, my understanding of it is that's even 2 is significant growth.
For secondary students, correct. For
Right.
secondary
So I
students,
think
yes.
that's, I point that out because I think it's an ambitious goal, which is good. Just that, it looks like a small number, we see 2 to 5%. That's a significant growth per the data, the norm data on the maps. So I've outlined some action steps that we're currently doing. These are not action steps. I mean, some of them are, are ongoing work. All of them are ongoing work actually, but they're not things that we haven't started yet. I've had, we work with an external literacy coach. We've worked with her for 7 years now, I believe it is, with the Hill for Literacy. It's been an outstanding experience. I've had an internal literacy coach for a number of years, and I was without that position last year. So I'm happy to, indicate that I've hired a new internal literacy coach that works closely with our external coach that comes and consults with us once a month. And so I'm optimistic that the progress in literacy will only, increase with the hiring of this new coach. We've been working very closely together, and she's been engaging with the Hill for Literacy already. We had our September meeting. Like I said, we meet monthly. We're reforming the leadership team again last year without a literacy coach. That was a real difficult situation. Then we really lost momentum with our literacy leadership team. So we reformed that team. They have meeting dates set up for monthly meetings. We have specific initiatives that we're working on to, to support not just ELA in an English class or an intervention class, but reading across the content areas. That's our big focus. We've, for a number of years now, we've been scheduling targeted literacy interventions. That's, proud to say that's in addition to grade level instruction. So in other words, no student in MAU middle school comes out of their first instruction math class to go get extra help in math. We've created a schedule where it's in addition to their first instruction math class. Same thing for reading interventions. I have a data team that is fully functioning. In fact, they have their third meeting already this school next week. They're a very ambitious team. And they are supporting teachers in reviewing data, so we can make instructional tweaks. And they actually are focusing right now on working with all of the new teachers or any teachers that are indicating they need a refresher to kind of, to show them how to encourage students to test and give it their all, because we do encounter that sometimes. But number two, how do you use that data to inform your instruction? So we're connected data team members with new teachers. And then I spoke a little bit already about our participation in CAST, which we're in year 2. Some of you weren't at the educational, I just remember some of you weren't at committee, sorry. So CAST is a UDL, Universal Design for Learning initiative. We're in year 2 of that. That is an initiative in a nutshell. It basically gives teachers tools to provide supports and resources and different way to look at a topic or educating children that would not only help an individual child, but they're things that would benefit all the children in the classroom. So that's what UDL is really
Whether they're struggling or excelling.
That's right. So those are, the specific goals around literacy that I'm, the action steps, I should say, not goals, the action steps that we're working on. The other goal that I have is safe and healthy schools. Okay, and so that is looking at monitoring students for social and emotional behavior, and we're looking at achieving a 5% decrease in students that are scoring in the moderate or high behaviors. This is evidenced by a screener that we give students 3 times a year, I believe it is, and then again trying to put tier 1 supports in place to help improve behavior for social emotional learning and behavior for students. So I've done the same thing, have evidenced some action steps that we're currently putting in place to keep the building safe and to achieve that goal. So one of the big ones is our social emotional learning curriculum. It's a tier 1 curriculum. In other words, every student in the building gets the social emotional learning. We do that during advisory 1 day a week. And it's called Second Step. That's the name of the social emotional learning curriculum. I stress the importance of this with my staff. Our students, they really need direct instruction in topics like social skills. There's pieces in there around anti-bullying. It's really teaching people how to be a productive and good contributing citizen, in my opinion. So that's a really important thing that all students receive that. It's also hard to look at what your what tier 2 interventions you want to put in place if everyone hasn't had that tier 1 curriculum. And so I really stress that with my staff. I've hired a hazing, harassment, and bullying coordinator, as you guys know, and that has been really, really effective already in the first 3-4 weeks of school. We could talk more about that another time, but I'm really seeing the dividends on that hire already. It's been really great to have that support in the building. I talked about the action step of my CSTAG threat assessment team. School threat, CSTAGs are acronym, Comprehensive School Threat Assessment Guidelines. I think most of you have heard me talk about this before. It's a research-based tool. It's one of the only research-based tools being used. I think the only being used in the country. So I have 12 trained members. We're actively doing that. I've hired 2 school safety officers, as you guys also are aware of. Again, really feeling the positive impact of that in the building right now. And then I have my leadership team regularly reviewing what we call the SRSSIE screener. I do not know that the acronym is for that. I assume that it is an acronym. I'm not sure what it is, what the screener, and I apologize for that. But it is a screener where we look at risk students that are showing either externalizing or internalizing behaviors, acting out or withdrawing behaviors. And we do a screener, and then we identify students that need supports from that screener. We do that 3 times a day. We review data, and then we, work with the faculty on what we can implement to help those students. And then there's also a treatment integrity survey that we complete, that staff complete that twice a year, all staff in the building. And that basically has them, it looks at the effectiveness of our MTSS plan and whether or not staff are buying into that, whether or not staff are reporting that they're following through and doing those components. I probably didn't talk too much and I'll stop right there.
Regarding the middle school, 6th grade. This, I'm not sure who to direct this question to, but is the curriculum generally the same for 6th graders in the middle school and the elementary, and two elementary schools that have 6th grade within their own walls, Shasbury, Pownell? Shasbury, Pownell.
I would reflect to Melissa on that.
You're asking the right person. So every single 6th grader, no matter where they are in the district, have the same standards and the same primary resources and the same professional learning. So I believe the answer to your question is yes, for sure. A 6th grader who goes to Shasbury is getting the same standards and the same primary resource as a 6th grader who is at the middle school.
Does that
Absolutely.
include those, that doesn't include the non-operating district of North Bennington, no, correct? That, it would be all practices. Okay,
Correct.
And I didn't have a 6th grader to go through the middle school. Do 6th graders in the middle school, is their learning by subject? In other words, do they go to a math class and then move to a English class, and then, or is it generally one instructor or a couple of instructors to do?
I have a 4-person core team and a 3-person core team currently at the middle school. So 4-person has a math, science, social studies, and English. There's also special educators and interventionists that support the teams, actually multiple. And then the 3-person team is unique in that there's a math, a science, and a English teacher. And then all of those teachers teach one section of social studies. So to answer your question, they do move pretty fluidly through classes throughout the day.
If I look at both sheets, because I had the other one in my bag that I got at the elementary meeting the other night, there's some interesting definite differences between the elementary 6th grade and the 6th grade in the middle school. And I that led me to the questions, and we can dive in at a later date if necessary. But,
In terms of goals or results?
results.
growth and what we're looking for.
It seemed as though on these tests, whatever preparation the kids are getting in the middle school helped them on these tests more or differently than, I'm not saying one's any better than the other, I'm being careful. Differently than the performance in the 3 schools that had a 6th grade within their walls.
I know the results you're speaking of, Scott. Yes.
And it was interesting to me. And I wondered if it was tailored, is it tailored by the type of instruction? You have a 4-person team, they're specialists in one form or another, teaching those kids. Is it
that group of kids?
Is it that group? Absolutely, and that very well could be.
Questions?
Good.
I will share, MAP is the more effective assessment as far as impacting instruction in real time. Because you have the ability, for a year-long course, you can check 3 times. You can do it in the fall, check progression, you can do it in the winter, see your progress, and you can do it again in the spring. High school is a little bit of a wrinkle because you have semester courses, but we've kind of found a workaround for that, to do that beginning of course, end of course. As far as the tools that are attached, it's not just a score that comes back. It doesn't tell you, hey, your kid grew 2%, 5%. And Melissa's been really good that as kids get older, the ability to reach your goal and surpass it, growth, the number shrinks. So 5% in a lower grade is good, but at a high school level, a 2 or a 3% is really what you're looking for achievement. So you can nerd out on data team. We have a data team that get all excited about this and all that kind of stuff. But there are tools linked to MAP that can then drill down on the individual kid and say, hey, under ELA, these are your areas of growth. You're really doing awesome. And these are areas where you could go back as a teacher and you could tweak it. They could break it down by your class. Hey, you got a group of learners within. So it's a very useful tool, whereas the state
Breaks
assess.
down by standard too.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
you can go down a deep dark hole if you really want
It's
to.
fun, it's not dark.
We don't let them out much. I just, the data folks can come back though, and they can really say, hey, look, as an English department, here are areas where you're doing awesome. And here are areas where like, if we just push a little bit more on this, I think we can get our kids to grow. And math is the same thing. So it's a really useful tool as opposed to a state assessment that you do at the end of the year. They don't give you back the results until the following fall. It has to go through a couple of, and that's usually the one you see in the paper and it's the snapshot stuff. That doesn't impact instruction nearly as much as math does. Having said that, middle school and your high school, you have data teams, you have teachers who are used to using that as a tool. So I've always told my staff, I'm much more interested in growth than how many of my kids hit proficiency. Because I know where they're coming from and I know I can celebrate the individual growth by kid by showing where they come from. It's my little pulpit thing. So my goals are similar to Chris's. I have areas, I should put my glasses on, that would help. ELA and mathematics, measuring student progress using MAP, looking for a growth goal of 2 to 5%. For the high school, I don't have quite Chris has some specific things. We are using UDL to really help teachers look at their instruction. How are you being effective? Are you reaching everybody? Are you engaging kids in the learning? Different types of strategies. It could be assessment. It could be delivering the content. So I think it's been good for a conversation. I think it's a learning, it's a stretch goal for high school too. Middle school is teaming. High school is a little more individual. So it's a good thing for us to kind of be in cohorts. And to the conversation we had at the Ed committee, our cohorts, we were very deliberate that there's representatives across departments. That's on purpose. Special education, the 4 core subjects and additional teachers. So we're hopefully including a wide swath of people within and a mix of experiences too. These are not all new people or all new veterans. So UDL is really what we're working at the high school to help impact instruction, which we hope will help kids do better with their achievements. The other piece, of course, similar to Chris, is safe and healthy schools. I have similar things in place. I have a student safety team. We do CSTAGs. The thing I want to highlight for this group is that with implementing a flex block, this is where we are doing our work around social and emotional learning. The School Connect curriculum is laid out. We talked about this earlier. There's a schedule of units throughout. I will say, and I have student reps here this evening. They can weigh in on this as well. It's a little bit of a mind shift for high school. You have folks who are like, why do we have to teach kids how to be good citizens and be kind humans and have empathy and things like that? They should come in the door with that. Like Chris said, we're exposing all kids to this so that everybody has a base understanding. I understand that a senior might be sitting here next to a freshman because we have mixed advisories this year. That's our experiment this year. That may change in the future. And you got seniors sitting there next to a ninth grader like, really? This is how I'm gonna spend 30 minutes? This kid can't even find his bag. But I think there's value. I think there's a value in kids who may not be taking classes together, who are not in the same classes. I think it's opportunities to have leadership. I think it's opportunities to have conversations that you normally wouldn't have. So I see value in that. And I ultimately, I have 2 seniors with me this evening. We're doing basic things like monthly class meetings. For the 12th graders, that looks much different than 9th graders. We're still teaching the 9th graders how to sit quietly and be attentive. And the seniors, we're taking care of business about college applications, and job fairs and things like that. So it's individualized by the group, but all of that is social emotional learning and their tools, the soft skills that we talk about that kids need once they go out in high school and be a citizen in this community. along with financial literacy, that would be helpful. So I'll stop there. If you have any questions?
I have a few things to add in the superintendent's report. Thank you to Melissa and our two principals. I'd like to hand you out a couple of our work products. This is, I talked about this at a previous meeting. This is a project that's been working on all summer. It is the SVSU staff guide. Never had one of these before. It's new now. The project was,
Let me hand them out.
oh, thank you. Let me keep one so I have something to hold in my hand. The project was driven by, when I was setting goals with our HR director, and one of my goals for him was to give off some of his work. He receives a lot of emails from people. So what's a strategy that we could do that? So it started with a guide to HR. So like, you have a question about your health insurance. This person in HR is responsible for that. You have a question about your 403B. This is how all that, so that information here. And then we went further than that. It's now everyone who works here at Sentinel office, and things like how to do frontline, which is what you use to put in for an absence, how to reset your password. So we know that this is it's a living document. It has a print date so that we know that when we do revisions that we can stay current. And and the risk with any printed document, I already have one resignation from somebody who's listed in here, but I think it was a great start, and I have to give public credit to our public information coordinator, Katie West, for tolerating the many revisions that I put her through. And also included in that for you is the 2023-24 speaker series, which board members are always welcome to join us by Zoom. It kicks off tomorrow, and the featured speaker is the superintendent of schools. But he's no fool. He knows to bring other people to speak for him. I am inviting the new SVSU equity coordinator who we have hired, who will be introduced to the staff speaking there. I am also the public information coordinator. This is the third year that we've done a speaker series. The first year focused on equity. The second year focused on all things related to education that would help a resource. And then this year is focused on the operations of the SVSU to help our staff that want to join the speaker series about our operations. So I will speak a little about what my roles and responsibilities are as superintendent, and Katie West will be speaking about best practices with the public information coordinator, and Michael Taylor, who is our new equity coordinator, will be introducing himself. And speaking of revisions, this guide is our snapshot sheet. I made two different mock-ups again this morning. So like I said, Katie West, she tolerates my middle of the night thoughts that when I come in the morning, what else how we can tweak that. So that we hope to be passing out at the SVSU board meeting next Wednesday night, and then we'll share that with all staff, all boards. This is meant to be a public document. This is a staff document. This is a snapshot of facts about the SU, such as our annual operating cost of $94 million. That's what and how many employees there, how many computers we have, what is the size of our bi-monthly payroll, and the impact on, also what the impact is on the community. Again, this will be a living document. Once I get this out there, I'm sure I'm going to get suggestions on other things that we could include on. So it's to help the public understand more about our operations. The last thing I want to say is I was not present at last month's MAU meeting. It was covered by the assistant superintendent, Laura Boudreau. So whenever she comes to the meeting with me, we meet and debrief about what was discussed, and then I also review the minutes. So I know that at last month's meeting, there were questions about hate speech and HHB, hazing, harassment, and bullying. topics that we all take seriously, where this fits into policy, and so, and what changes we should be considering as a board. So this is what I propose for the board to do. I've mentioned this to the principals, so they won't be shocked. But at the October meeting, my proposal is that we will put a presentation on about what is currently in those policies and how the operations of the school interact when there is an incident, what the process is used. I also will now have the new equity coordinator on board, and tomorrow marks at the end of 2 weeks for him, so he's got a learning curve going on. But reviewing our policies for compliance is something that he is passionate about doing. So I think we'll have a more robust presentation to the board for October, because what I think is important, and Wendy Marie, I believe it was your comments that I was reading in the minutes. I think we need to understand what the processes are now. I know we have new board members, newish board members, veteran board members. I think it's important that, so the equity coordinator, the two principals, myself, whoever else I decide I'm gonna wrangle into this presentation to the board once I can scope it and understand what I want to share with you. And because you should understand, like our attorney, Dina Atwood, is always involved in in certain levels of HHB investigations. Our equity coordinator, our HR director, Nick Galt, is drafted along with myself. We have a list of who the HHB investigators are at every school, the process they use. We're developed a organizational chart just specifically for Title IX, which is also a part of this, who the investigators are and who the adjudicators are, and so that process is in the works. We're still looking for a couple investigators from the high school and middle school. We have a list of potential people. We pay stipends to those people to do the initial investigation. So full-blown presentation at the October meeting of what those are. Then we have a better understanding of what the process is right now, what happens if somebody does use hate speech, how the schools react and handle that. And then we'll have better background for making suggestions for improvement. I hope that, from what I read in the minutes and debriefed with Assistant Superintendent, I hope that satisfies the board.
I have a quick question, if I could.
Absolutely.
I like the fact that you're doing that presentation for us. I think that's great. Thank you. I think something that I was trying to express last time was that we can have, a bevy of policies that sort of profess the things that we wish to happen, but if they're not actually happening every day in the classroom or on the field, and the teachers are doing nothing, or the coaches are doing nothing about the language that's being bantered about, what good is that? I mean, you don't have to answer that now, but that's something to sort of want to think about,
Yeah, and this is systemic SU-wide, right? It's not just, the solution doesn't lie just with MAU. So in my introductory comments with Michael Taylor, the new equity coordinator for the SVSU, a shift that I want to see happen in our equity coordinator's position is the education piece, particularly at the elementary level. We all, as educators, we all know, right, that's where we need to strike first to change minds, to educate our students. So the education component and the tools, the equity coordinator also has been charged with developing an equity plan for all schools so that principals can use that as a tool to help them deal with what they face every day. And that would also include the athletic director too, because what happens on our sports fields also reflects what's going on in our schools and in society. So it all has to be part of it. I really want to focus just not on an equity coordinator that is reacting to crises. That is a big component, and being a resource and tool to principals to help deal with incidents. But a big part of the job also has to be the educational and curriculum component along the lines of equity, which means, I had a principal say to me, it's not teaching tolerance, it's teaching kindness. And
Right.
I agree with that. So, and thank
So
you for keeping that on the forefront, Wendy.
That's okay. There was another piece I had a question about, just because it's something that I was heavily involved with when I was an educator. I was a part of a social justice team that worked with educators to try to have them be culturally competent. You probably have read that book about cultural competence, unpacking the backpack, so to speak, and talking about hidden bias within our own staff. And this is something I don't know about the district. Has the district engaged in staff development for its educators?
Yes, we have.
Okay, and the whole
And I'm not
staff.
saying, do it, and they have to do an online training every year. It's probably too many years ago that we had the Vermont NEA, and our opening day was all about implicit biases, and every staff member had to go through implicit bias training. But as I said to our equity coordinator, again, in our introductory talks, we need to revisit that and ensure that, like, particularly new hires have been onboarded, as that's part of their onboard training.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And there also is a committee that has been in formation, what?
The equity committee?
Yeah, for, I don't know, several years now.
2018.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
so.
predated even the equity coordinator position.
It absolutely did. And I've been a part of that committee since then. It did, kind of lose a little bit of ability to meet during COVID, unfortunately. But there was just a meeting last week I wasn't able to attend. It's called the Community Circle of Equity and Action. Lisa Flynn heads it up. And so it's made up of teachers and community members throughout the whole SU. So that is something, and that focus is on social justice and restorative practices.
The equity coordinator, once he's solidly on board, will start holding equity committee meetings again.
Okay.
Sounds like we need to push for the SU to find another position to help the equity coordinator.
It's a position that it took me 3 years to get through the board, with initially some questioning of whether, a Vermont school would need that position. And particularly with that this position also serves as our Title IX coordinator, it's become even more important, and the workload can be daunting. That's my report,
Stephanie.
unless anyone has any questions.
No,
Tori Rich is talking, it
Oh,
says.
sorry, Tori.
Yeah, so Jim, since you were giving recommendations on what we do about that, another thing that was brought up at the last meeting was possibly some sort of motion from the board to say that we don't support book bans. I didn't want that to slip through the cracks. I wanted to bring that up again.
The book ban conversation. So,
So you mean like the board would want to take a public statement vote on against banning books? Is that?
Yeah, there's a few districts around the country that are doing that, just sort of
Yeah.
making a stand saying that we don't believe in book bans.
So I will do a little research for what other schools may have voted, and bring it back that here's the verbiage that we would use, make that like a form of a motion. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, now we will move on to policies. We have policy 5080 for dress code to warn this policy. I have a motion for the policy. Do you need a motion for this? Is this we do?
Is there action requested or just?
To war, is there an action in the warning or it's just the way, we're just kind of?
So it was written in there.
Sorry, the dress to warn, do we need an action to warn? the policy?
Yes, you have to vote to warn it and then
And then vote to warn.
it's a two-vote process.
Okay, can I have a motion to warn policy 5080 dress?
So moved.
Any discussion? Oh, do I have to be?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a second, with no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Tori, did you vote also?
Yes, aye.
Okay, great, thank you, sorry, I saw Wendy's, but, we're gonna move on to policy 5084 for personal use of wireless connect or communication. This is to warn this policy. Can I have a motion to warn the policy?
So moved.
Second. Give a second.
Second.
Need one? Okay, any discussion on these books?
I have one question
Okay.
on this, and there's, I don't, normally, I just, to Leon, but we, it looks like everything has been crossed off and just one tiny little paragraph left on this with, I just don't think this paragraph says a whole lot.
Policy.
It doesn't seem like a policy to me.
Section of
I'm confused by it. Am I the only one, or?
very light.
It's very light, yeah.
Could be, I don't know the background to it, so I can find out the background for it and why it is.
Leon did notify us that he's not available to stuck up in Springfield. I don't seem to have.
You want to, I have a.
Could be that. Come ahead now. So now, help me understand your question. You feel that it
So that it feels like the old policy had way more guts to it, and this one paragraph doesn't say a whole lot to me. Explaining to me what a phone is. Really.
Well, it's in partnership with section 1.
Yeah,
There's a lot of, which is, I think, clarity for what is in section 2.
So we're saying all wireless, the wireless device sticker.
Yeah, I think it purposely was simplified because if I remember the discussion at that meeting is with how fast devices are changing, that to try to identify a particular device, like the old one actually had like walkie-talkies and things like that, that it was to simplify it and address things in administrative regulations that would go with it.
Perhaps like a watch that also serves as a
Yeah.
phone.
It's any personal wireless device. It's a pretty simple statement. So they felt that would be more encompassing than to try and list devices.
To me, the most powerful sentence is the districts therefore prohibit the personal use of wireless communication devices during instruction.
yeah.
All the others,
What happens at, I mean, there's a policy, there's no action.
But isn't that the admin?
The
rights?
action comes in the admin regulations. It'll get written once the policy's approved.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Speaking of which.
Perfect timing.
Couldn't have planned that better.
Aye. Aye. Wendy and Tori, are you good?
Yeah, we're good. I'm good. I'm good.
All those, big motion carries, so. We'll move to policy 2401, access control and visitor management, which is required by the AOE.
Both of these policies came out of the last legislative session. We have to have them, you warned them at your last meeting. We're a little behind the deadline. They were supposed to be in place by September 1st, but
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll move on to 2470, fire and emergency preparedness drills, which is also the AOE required. Can I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And we move on to policy number 3100, transportation, is to adopt. Can I have a motion to adopt this policy?
So moved.
Any discussion? This policy. Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We're gonna move on to the administrative report, starting with this student representatives. And, or if you want to introduce.
Introduce your.
Please.
We met today, I think we know each other well. So we have two student representatives this year, both seniors, Georgia Payne and Real Fawn Real Noto, who's back with us. And they are here to do a presentation, and whatever they cover, I'm gonna strike from my list, so that'll shorten my list.
And I already asked, and she told me there's no relation and it's spelled differently.
Yes.
So, we don't really have much. There is a new situation, or at least it's new to me, in which there are some classes in the high school that have been, so there are honors level classes and A level classes, which are like lower level classes, and they've been combined. So there are teachers that are teaching both A level students and honor students in the same block. And it's causing issues for students in different ways. So some teachers are moving too fast for the A level students, and some teachers are moving too slow for the honors level students. And I think it's difficult for the students, and it's also difficult for the teachers because they're trying to cater to two different kinds of students and give them everything that they need. So I just wanted to bring that up as a thing that's going on. And I mean, the high school fall production, the rehearsal start tomorrow, so the Brothers Grimm Spectacular-thon. So, and I think we also wanted to say that in terms of like safety, we're both feeling, and I think other students at the school are feeling pretty good, like better than last year so far, so that's good. And that's it.
Really? That's how. We did have a conversation, so new representatives, or returning representatives, and what we'll do going forward is we'll get together and I'll make sure I don't cover anything that they're gonna be covering. We did have the conversation, I know specifically what subject areas we're talking about, so what we can do is go back and talk to teachers about the concern. We can talk about it's instruction in the classroom, it's scheduling. We talked a little bit about that. Classes that both of them are attending are likely to have students who are in different grades. And so we got a little bit of the complexity of trying to get those groups to meet each other as they travel through the day. They might be separated by English, let's say, and then trying to get them into the same math class or science class. So it's a good conversation, but I think it's really good feedback for the teachers to hear that, how you're going to balance that. What do we need to consider going forward? So it's a good conversation.
Is it a numbers issue or staffing issue that they got combined?
I would probably say we think, because we didn't dig, we talked about it initially today, but I want to go back and look at it as a numbers thing. Were there 6 kids in honors and 14 kids who wanted to just take straight level? And in order to preserve the honors, we put them together. And we need to offer it in 2 parts of the day, or else students couldn't get to it, which happens in master scheduling. Because you may be in an advanced French class and I may be taking Spanish and we take separate history classes, but we're gonna land in the same block. So that'll be a good conversation. We can take a look at it. But in one case, there's 2 sections. So we have a couple theories we're gonna take a look at.
I just have one quick question. You mentioned that you feel safer this year. Is there something that's changed or that you can pinpoint, or just generally the way that the building
I
is?
mean, not really, given that we're only like a couple weeks in, but I think like at the beginning of last year, there were many fights, I think, that happened within the first couple weeks, and I haven't heard anything. Well, I mean, there was almost one today, but it was,
De-escalated.
I guess, I
It
mean,
resolved quickly and.
yeah, but other than that, like at the beginning of last year, I think there were a lot of incidents like within the first week or two, and so I think given that we're on week 4 and had one small one, I think that's pretty good, so.
Just the environment just seems like welcoming, nice.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great news.
It makes me really happy.
Principal Payne,
Good job, Tim.
in our introductions prior to the meeting, I've asked if they would come and meet with me, if they're welcome to come, or welcome to high school. Like, I do introductory meetings to all board members, so I'd like to then and talk about their operation of the board, their questions, their expectations. So just sent you all an email that, you know, maybe we can get that together done sooner rather than later.
They have availability to start with block 6, which is 1 o'clock.
Okay, so a day at 1 o'clock next week. I'll look at my schedule and see. Thank you.
Thank you both for being here.
Thanks.
All right, now I gotta get under that time limit, so let's see how I do. So I actually wrote my notes, and I feel like a cool kid because it's on my phone, but bear with me.
What's that policy again?
They supervise while I use it. We do have a new belt schedule this year. Our instructional blocks are built now around a 60-minute block of time. I would absolutely acknowledge that it's an adjustment for students and staff. Some have not a problem, others who have been under the previous schedule, it's a change. We are seeking feedback from both students and staff as we move forward with the idea that if we recognize that we may have to tweak things as we move along. I offered some just observational data that in the hallway, the 3-minute passing period has kind of cut down on the congregating of students, which may have reduced some of the drama that stirs itself between classes, but we'll keep checking that. We have Flex Block has returned this year. That was here the first year I was here, but we stepped away from it, found a plan. I feel better about that. I'm not sure it's going to stay a mix of grade levels going forward. We're working with the coach outside, and there's value to having the same advisor 4 years of working with the same cohort of kids. So that may be something that we're working for going forward. We had a planned fire drill this morning at the high school. I know that folks follow us on Blotter and on the Scanner channel, and folks on County Street get nervous when hundreds of high schoolers pile out onto the street. But we did a really good job practicing a couple of new things. What is new for this year, though, that the community should know, the schools community, is the state now expects us to give advance notice. It will not be date and time, but what you'll get is a robocall that says, your student should expect a fire drill this week.
Last night.
I got that same call.
So, I'm not meaning to, interfere with dinner planning and evening activities, but it is the state's expectation, and I agree with it. I think that anything that reduces anxiety around these drills, which I have to say, students are very well trained. It's a little bit of a sad comment on where we live, the time and place we live, but students handle it with seriousness. They follow directions and everything, but this year will be an added robocall, hopefully for parents. Tomorrow we're hosting the open house. We have 2 activities working under the big tent tomorrow. At 5:30 in the auditorium, we have a title presentation. Everybody's welcome to join us. At 6 o'clock, we have a very short meeting that kind of gives parents and families who are new to an open house kind of the lay of the land. And then shortly thereafter, students will follow their basic schedule through the building and they can go and meet teachers. For ninth grade families, well, they're used to it in seventh and eighth grade. This is not a parent-teacher conference night. It's not an expectation that you're gonna be able to meet with every teacher and sit down and talk about your individual student. But I do absolutely encourage you to correspond with your teacher, set up a time in which they can sit down if you have any questions or concerns or need any supports. And then next week is Spirit Week, a longtime tradition at the high school. So we have individual days where we dress up, show our spirit. We have pep rally on Friday afternoon. So I apologize to the neighbors in advance. Mark Upright gets really cranked up. It's gonna be very loud for a little bit. We have a homecoming game that evening on Spinelli Field. And then there is a homecoming dance. It is Saturday, the 30th. It is from 7 to 10. It's important to ninth graders. Don't tell your parents until midnight. That's not true. If you wish to purchase a ticket, you have to sign a homecoming promise. It talks about conduct and expectations. Your moms and dads and families need to sign that before you can purchase a ticket, which can be purchased in the front office. They're $5 a piece. One last thing, I've already had someone ask me, you cannot bring your middle school friend. Homecoming is an experience for grades 9 through 12, and there will be plenty of years for your middle school friend to experience that once they get to the high school. That's it. That's way longer than you're saying.
This time slot always falls to me. All right, so I've spoke about this already. Just want to
At next month's meeting, we'll put the middle school first, but
I think I've been there before. I think it's been a
we'll
while.
rotate it.
Okay, I like that. Thank you. So I've spoke about this a couple of times. I just want to formally thank and acknowledge the 3 new members of our safety team at the middle school. I'm getting a lot of feedback that as the high school students have referenced for the high school, which is great to hear. I'm getting a lot of feedback from students and from teachers and staff that the culture, the vibe, the feel of the building feels safer, feels more supervised, feels better, more positive. And I attribute that to a lot of hard work from a lot of people, but I do want to recognize Amanda Lacasse, my new hazing, harassment, bullying coordinator, Ken Kellamore, one of the members of my safety team, safety officer, and Jacob Hahn. They have assimilated into the school culture so seamlessly, and they are just really doing the good proactive work of being present in the building, walking around, making strong relationships with kids, hanging out in lunch duties and other places that, it's not always the play, hey, I want to go hang out in there, and they do want to go hang out in there. They're in there and they see the benefit of it. So I'm very optimistic about those new positions. I again want to thank the board for recognizing the need for them and for the voters for approving the budget. It feels different in a positive way. I'm starting to run clubs and activities in the next couple weeks. I would say within the next 2 weeks for sure, not sooner. We're going to be offering about 20 different clubs and activities this year, which is an increase. I have 4 or 5 new clubs and activities that we're going to be requesting to start. That includes a cooking club, a gardening club, a making stained glass club, a walking club. So there's some different things we're adding and bringing back some old favorites. Kelly Brooks, who is my recovery coordinator, is also helping me with organizing clubs and activities. Melissa Senecal has actually been a very helpful person in talking through some of these pieces. We're also moving to a little bit more formal sign-up procedure for students. So I think that will help us better report back to the board, numbers of students participating in clubs and help us a little bit better with communication with parents, which, for a 6th, 7th, and an 8th grader, that's, I think the need is even more prevalent than for, a high school student who might have a little bit more independence. So that's all positive stuff that's, going to be starting at the middle school really soon here. I continue to look for, hiring some positions. I have a secretarial position open at the school, and we received over 20 applicants for that. So that was a promising hit. Some of my other positions, not as many candidates, although we do have some interviews that are gonna be coming up for a library media specialist. I continue to look for applicants for a school counselor. So that is a position that I'm eager to fill, and if anyone knows anyone that may have some interest or may have some credentials, you know, you can certainly, I would love to have a conversation with them. And then I also, just wanted to recognize that I spoke about it a little bit earlier. I have a number of teams and committees that are convening and already starting the good work they're doing. My data team is, they're a very ambitious group. They love data. They literally get like excited in the meeting when we're sitting and talking and hanging out together. And so they do a great job of kind of, helping me frame some things in my head. My PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention Support Team is meeting regularly. They've been meeting throughout the summer and into the school year. My MTSS leadership team, I facilitate that group, and we just met today. And I also have my technology committee, my proficiency-based learning committee, and my lit leadership team, all starting, meeting regularly in the very near future. So a lot of good people just doing a lot of good work, and I wanted to recognize them. My last thing I wanted to just say is we had a presentation on MAP tests, and we have scheduled our first testing session for MAPs within the district window. We're going to be doing a reading test on the 27th this month and the MAP test on the 28th. And the data team helps me, they put a lot of time and energy into really thinking about when we do these tests, how we're preparing faculty for proctoring these tests, and also how we're preparing students for taking these tests. So again, they're a valuable group to me.
Just one for the board. I'm sure you saw the letter in the packet. Ms. Gardner, who Mr. McGuire mentioned, had been before retirement with Mount Anthony Middle School for 40 years. It's a heck of a long time. So if it's okay and with interest of the board, I'd like to send her a letter on board's behalf. Thank you.
That'd be great.
Any other questions? We're gonna move on to committee reports. Do you want to report on your?
I can.
It's,
That's fine.
Yeah.
We had a very productive meeting.
Leon is now joining.
Oh, okay, great. We had a productive meeting for the Education, Athletics, and Activities Subcommittee. We discussed some, just want to make sure the board is aware of some new credit-based changes that were requested from the Southwest Tech, as well as a result of AOE guidance. So culinary, the 2-year culinary program, after 2 years, they would be receiving a math credit. And after 1 year, they would be receiving I think it's a half a science credit, right? Was it half a science credit or 1 science credit? I can't read the notes. I think it's 1 science credit.
I wrote down.
1 credit. And then graphic arts is a 2-year program as well. They're requesting to add a half a tech credit after the first year and add 1 math credit after the second year. 1 art credit is already embedded. Video production, that is a 2-year course, and they're requesting to add 1 science credit and 1 English credit after 2 years. A half a tech credit is already awarded. So the committee didn't have any concerns with any of that, and kind of just an FYI for the board. There was an update on universal design for learning. Just a quick overview of what it is, kind of like Chris already explained earlier. But we did discuss that there was an offer made to provide a more in-depth presentation to the board in one of our MAU meetings, so to maybe put it on the agenda. But it was recommended that maybe we wait till later in the year, so that group, the second year group, is getting more experience and they can provide more in-depth information. So we were thinking maybe after budget time, so maybe January, February, and before we lose Ms. Mizell to maternity leave. Was that what your concern was?
Yep.
Yes. So that, just wanted to kind of share that with you, see if you wanted to add that to the agenda. There were some conversations about the 60-minute bell schedule, flex blocks, some feedback provided that Tim will be looking into. There was an update on, you used I'm spelling it out, but NEA, what is it? What do you call it?
Yes.
NEASC.
Yep.
I didn't want to sound silly and say it wrong. And they provided the update on that. I think Tim provided the board information on that last meeting, but there was a discussion for maybe a presentation in the spring in regard to the portrait of a graduate that they are going to be providing as part of that review. We discussed a little bit about the desire for an outdoor education program at the MAU Middle School, and Chris is in the process of starting some research and potentially will this year meeting with other programs other schools that have that program and getting an idea of what that entails to get that ball rolling. There was some questions about physical education, and there was a request for some information on the curriculum currently. And there was some discussion about the class sizes that look like it has been reduced with the now new block system, 60-minute block system. And then there was also a discussion and a question to explore exemptions in regard to physical education, the pros and cons. There was a lot of conversation back and forth. But we don't even know what the state's requirements are, or if it is even something that would even be allowed. So that question has been asked to the state, so we'll find out more information on that and then even have a discussion at that point. But it was more trying to find out, is that even something that has been explored? And it doesn't sound like here it has been. So if it's even possible, then we would start even talking about that, if it is even something we want to explore. And then lastly, there was a question about adding financial literacy as a required course to provide students with that knowledge and expertise as we're putting them out into the world. And there is already a request for that curriculum standard to be a part of the curriculum. And so there's already a group looking at where that would fall, and there's conversations about it potentially being within the math curriculum. But they're having conversations now, so they're looking at that next summer. So that may be a conversation or something that is being discussed probably next fall. Dave, Wendy, did I miss anything?
Done good.
Thanks.
That's amazing that you got it off. That's great. Bravo.
I don't believe there were any other committees that met last.
Ag did, but I didn't go. I wasn't there.
Wendy, would you like to report on the Ag Committee or?
Yeah, Chris was there too, and Chris is the person that hired the new person that's the land steward, so he could probably give more details on it. We spent a lot of time meeting the new land steward. Chris, do you want to talk about her? She sounds like she's great as far as her experience is concerned, and she's going to bring a lot of.
We're excited to have her. Lisa is her name. She has some educational background as well, which is really nice. It's I think that was, we were able to kind of relook the job description a little bit before the hire, and what I'm excited to get is, I have someone that I'm very confident can take care of the garden space and do the planting and the planting and the weeding and all that, which is a big part of the job. But she's already connected with, I believe at the ag committee, she had said 6 different teachers in the building that she's kind of helping access the garden as part of their curriculum. And so I thought that was, very noteworthy that, she's been on, her first day was August 28th. And that she's connected with 6 middle school teachers and starting those conversations about having them actively involved in the garden. So, that's what I would say about her.
I really like the fact that, yeah, she's proactive and she was going to teachers saying, you can teach this standard in the classroom. This is something you have to teach. This is something we can work on together through the garden, which I thought was wonderful. She seems like a wonderful addition to the program that's offered there. Elizabeth also talked about the hoop house and how we had those vents installed last year. Had some problems with the recent storm with some of them, but has had them remedied. She has a beautiful greenhouse full of all sorts of plants that that they're using, obviously, with the classrooms and so forth. And Lisa, the new person, has some great ideas for improving it as well. She wants to take what's there and just make it even better, which I think is a wonderful way of doing it.
Thank you. Were there any other committees that met this month? So moving on to the chair's report, we're in half of the meeting, so I want to have this very limited. Last month, I gave people the option, the board members, to comment. If there's something that's a board member wants to bring up for a future agenda item, this might be a good time for us to consider. I want to, I say that, but I want to reserve any conversation as it's not warned on the agenda. But so if there's something that any of the board members would like to be brought up now for a future agenda, this would be a great time. That being said, I have a motion.
So
It's hungry.
Thank you. Have a good night.